Today we're going to be covering exercise 6, 3D printing in France. What is 3D printing? 3D printing is making solid objects out of a digital file. It takes a file that has specific formatting specifically for 3D printing and converts it into a tangible object. You can see it works kind of in this picture just by it layers materials down in the shape required and it just builds up on each layer. So it works from bottom to top and just kind of slowly builds your product that you need. I think a big opportunity is that it allows companies to print their own goods rather than buying every little thing that they don't have. I think that's an extremely interesting opportunity that companies could try to take advantage of rather than buying all of their needs. France has a strong presence in the 3D printing market, but the US is the world leader by a good margin, and France is not particularly close. Who uses it? Companies are the primary users of 3D printing. It has a great impact on healthcare and automobile industries. I think that's really the biggest positives is that the healthcare industry can be revolutionized using 3D printing. It creates a lot of jobs in analysis, development, and manufacturing, whether that's building the 3D printers or analyzing results, analyzing the things that it can create, things like that. And then I think one of my favorite jobs is the software engineer. Basically, your job is to develop and maintain 3D printer software. You work with builders to make sure and coders to make sure that you're developing and maintaining the softwares and things like that. You really just need to be able to code. Makes around 85,000 a year at least, and comes from an IT or computer science background. Where are they using it? In France, businesses are the primary users. I think that's probably the case around the world. Most governments are not using 3D printing, and unless you're extremely rich, you're not buying one. But businesses and, for example, in the US, colleges use it a lot. Um, Manufacturing and healthcare are the two biggest industries that use it. Manufacturing, in particular, for cars, it's a huge multi-billion-dollar industry now to be able to 3D print your own parts. And then healthcare can have a lot of really interesting implications, including 3D printing organs. Um, my three favorite uses are in the automotive and healthcare industries, and then I think recreational, just in general. I think it would be super cool to be able to custom build your own, like, kids' toy or things like that using a 3D printer. I just think, despite the expense, I just think that's a really cool use. And then some of the challenges in opposition to this are that there are health effects to working on them. The CDC website actually does have a tab under their 3D printing that talks about the pathogens that can be put in the air by 3D printing. So it's just really important to be mindful of that. And that seems to be the biggest issue with it. Why are they using it? I chose Biomed X, one of the leading 3D printing medical companies in France. It does have branches in Connecticut and Germany as well. Um, but their strengths are that the research into 3D applications, um, one of the leaders in 3D printed prosthetics. They lead in general 3D printing, just in terms of capabilities and knowledge. And they use it in immunology research, in particular with research into organ failure and things like that, and diseases that cause organ failure. I also do think that they have a couple weaknesses, and in particular that they're very specialized in what they need and what they need to print, in which means they can only print in small quantities. And then some opportunities. Biomed is a leading opportunity in 3D printing in general. And then some threats is that US companies are more advanced, but I think is really important that they have that US branch. When are they using it? It's used in 103 startups in France, actually. So France is big into the startup and trying to get 3D printing going. It can allow companies to be more self-sufficient, which I think is a really important aspect to when it's used and why it's used. But then again, some of the opposition will be to health of workers that, just like the CDC had mentioned, that can't be ignored. And I think it can change the game in the sustainable development goals because really with the quality education, it can create new learning opportunities for everyone. If you can 3D print, you can be there are really interesting ways that you can learn, even if you don't have access to all the resources that you could need otherwise. But if a school in a swell, poorer area could get their hands on one, if it would be supplied one, I think it could be an incredible learning opportunity. And I do think that it leads the innovation to many sectors. Like the 3D printing does lead to innovation in the medical field. It leads to uh, innovation in automotives and manufacturing. So I think that that's a really big one. And my two truths and a lie: 3D printing only uses plastic. Food can be used as a material to print with. And there are over 100 3D printing startups in France. Thank you.